My view of the prison has always been from a single camera inside the cafeteria, and so it was again. The door on the left opened, and some prisoners entered, queuing up for their meals. This was a mixed group of men and women. I did not see any familiar faces, but one of the women had her face blurred out. I played a hunch and zoomed in on her face, figuring the latest button on my computer will remove the pixelation so I could see her clearly. I lined up the reticle and pressed the new button. Nothing happened. The button did not fully depress. It was locked out, just as the other one had been, the one that let me see the punishment for the prisoners. I zoomed back out and saw another prisoner had entered the cafeteria. This was a man whose face was pixelated. He must have been new to the prison. He didn't get in line with the others. He wandered around the room with his hands in his pockets. This was a violation, but since he was clearly new, I wanted to give him a chance to figure out through social cues. He got some of it right, since he walked over to a group that was eating and sat down to join them. At his table was the woman with the pixelated face. How cute. Two blurry strangers meeting in a psychotic prison. She stopped eating and said something to him. He looked around the room, then saw the kitchen area where the prisoners got their trays. He walked over and picked up a tray, then sat down at the table. He didn't eat. He just stared at the blurry woman. That was another violation. Prisoners are required to eat their food. I almost pushed the button, but things got interesting when the pixelated woman reached over to the new guy's tray and took some of his food. She started eating it. I had never seen that before. I once saw a prisoner eat someone else's meal when he had vomited over his own. That was a greedy gesture of self-protection. His goal was to meet the dining requirements so he could escape punishment. Another prisoner once pushed some of their own food onto another's tray when she was deep in prayer. This was something different. It almost looked like an act of kindness. The new guy said something to his girlfriend. Then he reached over to her tray. And that's when I saw it. He was missing 2 fingers and part of his palm. My heart was pounding, my breath ragged. I couldn't accept what I was seeing. I didn't want to believe it. Didn't want to play anymore at this prison guard game. I picked up the laptop and stood up. I closed it as I walked to the kitchen and prepared to throw it out the window. I couldn't bear to witness the prolonged torture of anyone else, especially not anyone I loved. The phone rang before I threw the computer. I answered it immediately, hoping it was Shayna, hoping she would tell me my dad was okay, hoping this was all a mistake, and I was looking at some other poor fool who lost part of his hand. It wasn't Shayna.
I have some good news and some bad news,
said Miss Tucker, the Human Resources employee.
I managed to clear your violations with management, but I had to get creative with reallocating your atonement to a new guest. Management gave me the green light, so I went ahead and made the swap.
I asked her if it was too late to make the atonement myself.
Sorry, honey. I can't undo the switch, but I can transfer this call to the warden if you want to take it up with him.
I asked her to let me talk to the warden.
Hold tight,
she said.
And good luck.
The call was placed on hold. The waiting music played the melody of a Sinatra song. The warden joined the call, cutting short the tune of Lovers at First Sight.
Haven't we already gone over this? I gave you the opportunity to get back in my good graces, and you're already thinking about jumping ship?
I was beyond livid. I was shaking with anger. I screamed in frustration, lacking the words to articulate what I was feeling.
Easy, Chief. You don't want to give yourself an aneurysm. You'll lose your last chip.
I told him I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't be responsible for the new arrival. I couldn't keep doing this job.
Oh, but we've only just begun. If you think there's no way this can get any worse, I assure you it can. You should know I'm not completely unreasonable. I accept that new hires need a certain amount of conditioning to become good employees. If you wish, I can pull back the curtain a bit to help you understand your role in this outfit.
I told him I wanted to know everything.
I'll tell you as much as you can handle. Our detention facility is obviously more than a prison. I can't have the on-site staff interact directly with our guests for the same reason I can't tell you all that you want to know. Their minds would melt into a puddle and they'd waste their time of atonement wailing in their own filth. Those who prove unsuitable for these initial efforts at atonement are transferred to a different facility for alternative interventions.
My mind flashed to my first encounter with Eugene, how he had tried to open the cage on the window, an escaped attempt. My first button push. I found him lying on the floor, his pants soaked. Later, I watched his seemingly lifeless body get pushed into the tray return.
Your predecessor did not live up to his potential. He violated the terms of our agreement and ended up a guest in our very facility he was assigned to monitor. I had higher hopes for him, but he was far more useful as a guest than an employee. My team hires people like you to watch our guests on behalf of the staff, as we found even observing them directly has a negative impact on their ability to endure their conditions. Finding the money to pay you is never a problem. I've made deals with a number of wealthy benefactors who discreetly supply large sums of currency.
I remembered the envelope stuffed with cash with a faint odor I couldn't quite place. A secret organization supported by wealthy donors with money to burn.
The last several months have been difficult, as our previous monitoring center was destroyed by a disgruntled employee. One of our interns suggested we start a remote viewing program to decentralize the operation and make it impossible for one lost soul to cause so much damage to our organization. If it weren't for this technological innovation, we'd have to go back to the old ways, with direct interaction between the staff and the guests.
I thought back to waking up on my kitchen floor with a bad taste in my mouth. A disgruntled employee destroyed the old monitoring system? Maybe someone had their own button pressed a few too many times and wanted payback.
When you initiate a corrective action on one of our guests, the staff encourage other guests to act on their behalf. Given the nature of our guests, minimal encouragement is usually required. When you first started, I blocked your ability to observe the corrective action directly. This was not to hide the nature of your work, but to protect your mind as you grew into the position. I believed then, and I still believe now, that you have the potential to join our organization in an executive role. While the pay so far has been great, I believe you'll find the fringe benefits at the executive level to be out of this world. If I were a gambler, and I am, I would wager your condition for joining hinges on the current predicament of our newest guest. I've activated the latest switch on your console if you prefer to remove all doubt.
I knew where this was going, that the latest button would remove the pixelation. I aimed the camera at the newest arrival. I pushed the latest button and saw my father.
So here's my offer, sport. You'll agree to join the team, and I'll let him go just like that. One day, you'll learn how uncommon it is for me to make such an offer. Our guests generally do not leave early, if at all.
I didn't have to think about it. I just said, okay.
Splendid! Let's get the old chap on his way, shall we? I'll let you do the honors.
I aimed the camera at the window and pressed the original button. The gate swung wide, and the window itself opened. Almost every face in the cafeteria turned towards the window.
I think dear old Dad will need a hand. Perhaps a volunteer will step forward, eh?
The other pixelated prisoner stood up. She walked over to my father and helped him to his feet, then whispered something into his ear. He looked out the window, then looked back at her. She nodded and guided him over. He looked at the camera for a moment, then climbed out the window. The screen went black, and a 6-hour countdown timer started.
It's time for you to do your part. I give you a few hours to take care of any personal matters. I trust you'll find a good home for Mitty. That adorable little asshole needs someone to look after him. I suppose I shouldn't have to tell you that breaking the terms of our agreement means I'll have to bring both you and Shayna here. One last thing, it doesn't matter how you choose to report for duty. I trust you'll select a reliable method.
The call disconnected. I didn't waste any time. I coaxed Mitty into a crate and took him over to Shayna's place. I called her on the way to have her meet me there. I told her I had to go into hiding for a while and that I'd reach out to her if I could. When I got home, I maxed out my credit cards on Amazon orders for the two of them. I'm not worried about the bills. I'm pretty sure I won't need to think about money ever again. I took the time to write up this last chapter because I didn't want to leave you in the dark. What can I say? I've taken a real shine to bringing the light. Maybe I will be a good fit for the executive staff. I live on the second floor of my building, which means traveling to my new job through the window won't work. I think I'll go with the kitchen knife I used to open the computer boxes. It's pretty sharp, so it should do the trick. Only thing left to do is draw a nice, hot bath. After all, everyone makes mistakes. Fixing them is as easy as pushing a button. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more or simply like to support my channel, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps out. Until next time.